Hello everyone, welcome to A2O consultation. Today we will be talking about condition access policy in Microsoft Intune or Microsoft Azure. In our previous lessons, we have learned about compliance policies and the licenses which are required for Microsoft Intune, and also the ways or the platforms which supports Microsoft Intune, or the enrollment or the policies to be assigned to. So first of all, we just need to understand that what is condition access policy and why it is used. To describe or to explain condition access policy, it is a set of conditions and the access control which can be deployed on end users' devices. This particular term, this condition access term, this refers to the ways one can control the devices and applications that are allowed to connect to the organizational email and data sources. Now, with condition access, one can implement automated access control decisions to access the cloud applications that are based on condition. That means you put on a condition to get access on any certain application or any certain company resources, for example, emails or Exchange Online or any other application which are available on cloud for Microsoft. Basically, there are two types of condition access policies that can be applied in Microsoft Azure. The first one is device-based condition access. Second one is application-based condition access. Now, the device-based condition access, there are different sub-variants in it. Like you want to apply condition access for Exchange on-premise, that is in-house Exchange. Second one is condition access based on network access control. That means you want to make sure that a particular or a certain IP range or a certain users located in an area should be able to access the devices or the resources. So condition access based on network access control, this manages this particular feature. The third one is condition access or conditions based on device risk, like the it includes any viruses or it can any security threats which might be available on device or anything as such. The last one is condition access for Windows PC. The Windows PC has two condition accesses which can be applied to the devices. First one is corporate owned devices, like the devices which are managed through autopilot or the devices which are automatically enrolled in Intune. And the second one is bring your own device. That's the home devices, like any personal computer, any Windows 10 desktop or laptop which you bring into your organization in order to access the company resources. So the condition access can be applied on that device as well. To understand the condition access better, let's look at a diagram here, which should be right here, this one. For example, there is an end user, like there is an user here, this one. He has a cell phone or a smartphone, a desktop, a tablet, and a laptop. He wants to access the company data that is available on-premise and cloud. There are set of conditions which can be deployed on this user or his devices or the applications which are there. The first one is user groups. You can create a user and then assign a group to it, to the user, so that if this user or this group has access to the company resources, his devices would be allowed to access everything in on-premise or on cloud. Second one is cloud apps. For example, if you have an email setup in picture, or if you want to make sure that this user should be able to access any of these two resources from on-premise or from cloud using a certain application. So you can select the cloud applications which you want to deploy or which you want to put a condition access on. Third one is device state. this condition access or this condition defines that a particular device state should be allowed to access the company data. So device states can be multiple things. Either you want to make sure that devices are marked as compliant, or when I say compliant, that means enrolled with Intune. Second, you want to make sure that the devices are Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined. So these are device states which can be defined under conditions for this user or his devices. Second one is location. As I stated earlier, if you want to make sure that a certain geographical area or any IP range which you want to allow for the security purpose, you can assign a location for this user or the user group. Next one is client apps. Nowadays, what happens? A resource can be accessed from many ways. Let's take the simplest example, that's Exchange Online. Okay. Now, in Exchange Online, what happens? You can access it from browser. You can access it from native email application on devices. For example, in iPhone, there is an email app. On Android, there's an email app. These are the native applications. You can access it using Outlook. You can access it using Gmail application nowadays. So this defines which one do you want to allow or where you want to put the conditions on, either on the Exchange Active Sync or on modern authentication. We will discuss about modern authentication later, but for now, just understand that modern authentication is a kind of protocol which enables or which is enabled by default in Exchange Server 2016, can be enabled in Exchange Server 2013, but prior to that, this modern authentication cannot be enabled. And in applications, Outlook has modern authentication enabled by default. Outlook application has modern authentication enabled by default, and the similar goes for iOS native email applications, which are available in the iOS after 11.3 upgrade. So these conditions can be set in under client apps. Then the sign-in risk. We will check this later because it's not much of importance. But again, if you want to make sure that the enterprise or the organizational data is entirely secure, so I will show you this in the portal. Now, if you have put all these conditions in place for this user and his devices, then there are two things which may happen, or there are two kind of access controls which you get. Either you want to allow access or you want to block the access. Now, what are these two? If you are saying that if these conditions are met, or if you have set a condition on this one, and if this is met on the device, or if these conditions are there on the devices which the user uses, then the access will be allowed. And if these are not met, then the access will be blocked. Also, there are two options: allow access or block access even on the portal. We will see that in a bit. Okay. Now, on-premise or on-premise server or on-premise setup, what you can do, you can enforce the multi-factor authentication depending upon the requirement. Either you want to put it on a user or an application. So it's completely up to you where you want to put or where you want to enforce the MFA on. Now, if we get back and if we open the browser, then let's say here. Okay. All right. In order to get to the condition access on Azure Active Directory, well, there's one thing which I want to make clear, that the condition access policy for Intune can also be set using the Azure condition access policy. There's an entirely new section I'll show you. You go to Azure Active Directory in the Azure portal. Over here, you search for condition access policy under security over here down the bottom. Then you click condition access. Once you open conditional access, there are different options: named locations, custom controls. That's in preview mode, so it may work, it may not, depends. Third one is terms of use. For example, if you want to set a term of use, just like how a user, or if a user is enrolling in your organization, what terms should he accept or not. Let me just show you what it is all about. There's no item yet, I believe. Yeah, none. You go to new terms, and then you create a new term. Let's say I'm creating a test term. Then you go a display name, test term of use document. If there is any document, you can upload it. If no, leave it. Require user to expand the term of use. It's completely up to you, on off. Enforce the condition access policy templates. Um, Access to cloud apps for all guests. These are the templates which are by default available. You can select any of it or none. Completely up to you, entirely up to you. There is nothing important here. Then VPN connectivity. This is very important topic which I will not cover today because it may take some time. So I will skip it for now. But let me just make a note of it. Okay, now it is done. Now the next thing is classic policies. It's like the previous Azure version which was there, but now it's not there. So you can simply check all the policies which are enabled or disabled in Azure. New support request is completely that thing. Then go to policies. Once you are in policies, you click new policy. Over here, let's create a policy test policy A20. All right. Now assignments. This is the first option which I was talking about, um, which is, I believe, is here. This one, the user group. Okay. Now the user group, you can select that where do you want to apply the policies, either none, all users in the organization, or select users and group users and groups, or directory roles, anything which you want to apply. If I select users and groups, there would be it will list the users and group which I have in my tenant. Currently I have 2 users, so I will select the any of it, or let's select the test group, or you can select a user separately. Once you select it, it's done. And the second thing is cloud apps. This is what we are looking at right now, cloud apps. This cloud apps would give you an entire list of applications which can be managed using Intune or Azure. You go to, if you select all cloud application, it will select everything as it says. Then if you select apps, or if you go for the option that says select apps, then you can select a list of applications which you want the condition access to be applied on. Over here, let's see. XCHEA. There we go. I'm creating a condition access policy for Microsoft Office 365 Exchange Online. I selected this. Okay, then done. Now I want to go for the conditions. What are the conditions available? The first thing is sign in risk. Let's see. Likelihood that the sign in is coming from someone other than the user. Risk level can be high, medium, or low. Required Azure AD Premium P2 licenses. As it says, it requires Azure AD Premium P2 licenses, and just to make sure that the user who is signing in is an authenticated user. If you want to select, or if you want to enable it, you can do it. Yes, no, whichever you want to select. Then the device platform. There are Android, iOS, Windows Phone, Windows, and Mac OS. I'll be creating a policy for iOS and Android devices. Done. Then locations. If you have any location which you want to include, you can go for it. If you select any location, that means any user from any geographical location can access to the Outlook, I'm sorry, Exchange Online. from their devices from anywhere. If you select all trusted locations, in that case you will need to select a trusted location list in the Azure AD, or the third option is selected locations. You can select the location as per your requirement. You can select the IP addresses or MFA trusted IPs. This is the by default one. If you want to create a new location, you can do it, and then you can select the location as per the geographical area or the IP addresses. I'm closing it because I do not need to create any location. Then client apps. This one is actually important. If you do not configure client apps, the cloud app will not get a platform like how to open it. As I said earlier, that the client applications are the applications which are used to open any certain cloud app. In this case, we have selected Exchange Online. So Exchange Online can be opened using browser, as I said, using your Chrome or Mozilla, IE, anything. Second one, mobile apps and desktop clients. As we all have mobile applications, it can be native applications, it can be Outlook application, Gmail, Nine Mails, anything which can be used to access the Exchange Online. Over here, there are one, two, three major sections. The first one is modern authentication clients. As I stated earlier, modern authentication clients, we have Outlook, which has the by default modern authentication enabled. Second one is iOS email application, which is available in Android version 11, in fact 11.4 onwards. Second one is Exchange ActiveSync clients. Exchange ActiveSync client is used by the native email apps for Android, like the email app or Gmail. I think Gmail also uses the modern authentication. Yes, it does. Then Exchange ActiveSync is basically for native applications and anything before 11.4 in iOS. Other clients, it's actually not required. This means any other applications which might be used, like any other Thunderbird or any other application which can come to the market later, or if they are available right now. So if you want to apply the conditions on modern auth clients as well, also on native email applications, you can select these two both, because if you select this, so this condition whichever we are creating right now will be applied for the Outlook application, and if we select Exchange ActiveSync clients, then it will be applied on the native email applications, and if we do both, it will apply on both. Let's do for the both and then done. Device state, it's again in preview mode, either all device state because it's in preview, so it's not much right now. There may be some additions which could happen on Intune, but with this 1809 version, there is nothing much with the device state preview version. Now, if we click done, these are called condition. This one is called condition. The next one which we need to look for is access control. This is where the grant or block comes into the picture. Grant access, as we stated, allow access or grant access for any of these two. This one, there are 4 access rules. The first one is, okay, let's start with block. If you click block, everything will be blocked, no question asked, nothing at all. But if you go for grant, in that case, there are 4 options. The first one says require multi-factor authentication. If you want to make sure that any user who is using the Exchange Online from their devices, they must be asked to configure their multi-factor authentication on the phone, you can check it. If they do not configure multi-factor authentication, the devices will not be able to access Exchange Online or their emails on the phone. If you select require devices to be marked as compliant, whenever we see this marked as compliant or the compliant option here, or the compliant word, in fact, that includes Intune. So if you check this one, this option, that means the iOS and Android devices which we have selected under conditions needs to be compliant. That means they need to be enrolled with the Intune. Third one, require hybrid Azure AD joint devices. Well, with iOS and Android, this is not necessarily the case because uh, you can actually enroll the devices, but that cannot be basically joined. They can be listed in Azure AD, but not basically joined. Then third one is required approved client apps. That's one tricky. Then you need to check the list of approved client apps. Once you go to the approved client apps, it will have a list of the entire or most of the Microsoft applications which are approved. As you can see, starting from Intune Managed Browser, Power BI, Microsoft Invoicing, Launcher, and so on and so forth. So these are the applications which are approved. If you select this option, or if you select this option in here, that means only the user would be able to access the emails only on these applications, or yeah, whichever cloud app you select. As you are using, or if you have selected Exchange Online, then we have Microsoft Edge which can be used to access online or Exchange Online. The second one is there should be Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. These two applications basically can be used to access the Exchange Online or emails on the devices. So if you select this option, this will narrow down the use of applications. Okay, right. So these are the access controls. Now, for multiple controls, for example, if you only had require multi-factor authentication, so in that case, it does not matter which option you select from here, because this is for multiple controls. Let's say I need the devices to be compliant, I need MFA, and I also need the client app. In that case, we need this. We need to understand these two. I believe most of us are aware of AND gate and OR gate. AND gate means if one has, let me just give you a brief description or brief information about it. So, AND is equal to 1 and 0 is 1. 1 and 0 is 1, yes. So let's not get into this one. Okay, when you select AND, or when AND gate is selected, then all the requirements need to be fulfilled. That means require all the selected controls. If a user has required, or if a user has configured MFA and has the device compliant, but they are not using approved client apps, they won't be able to access Intune, or they won't be able to access Microsoft Exchange Online or the emails on their devices. So in order to access emails, which we have set here as cloud apps, they need to have all these three conditions or all these three access rules to be met. The second one, require one of the selected controls. If any of it is available, or if any of it is enabled on the device would be able to access uh, Exchange Online or emails on their devices. So it does not matter either he has the device as compliant, or if he is using any approved client apps, or if he is using only multi-factor authentication. Any of these three should be there. If it is there, he should have access. So for now, I'm selecting this one because this would be a little too stringent. So I will be selecting this option, require one of the selected controls. Select. Then the session. Who? Use app enforce restrictions, use condition access app control. App enforce restriction might require additional admin configuration within the cloud apps. The restrictions will only take effect on for new sessions. Session control enable limited experience within a cloud app. Select the session usage requirement. Well, we need to look into it later. For now, These are the important options which we have selected so far. Then we enable the policy. It will be applied on one group which we have selected. We have one cloud application in place, that is Office 365 Exchange Online. We have two conditions selected. One is device platform. In device platform, we have Android and iOS. After that, we have client apps, which we have selected that all the options, including browser and mobile app and desktop clients. Now, this is once it is done, we have created the access control, wherein we have selected MFA, device compliance, and approved client apps. Then we have selected OR gate. That means if any of it is available, it is available. Done, and we create it. That's it. That's all about the condition access policy. This policy will be visible in Intune also. As you could see, we have created in Azure AD, but if you want to check, you can go to Intune, and then you can go to the condition access policy. As you can see, this policy U2O, we open it and we have the same thing over here as well. Now, audit log, I believe I have uh, checked in the previous one. Yep, this will show you that what changes have been made and by who. Right now there was no changes made in, there are no changes made in Intune, so it's not showing anything. Let's say I make anything, I just change anything. I go here, select users and groups, and I select another user. Okay, I go for this group. Select, done, and done. Now we need to check the audit logs here. If we go here, it should show the changes, or maybe it will take some time to replicate here. Nothing big deal. The third one is Exchange Service Connector, or the next one is Exchange Service Connector, and we have two things: Exchange Active Sync and Exchange Service Connector, which we will cover up in the next lesson because it will be a long one. And we also need to cover the on-premise access, because we have currently covered the cloud part. Right now we only have covered cloud. We are left with the entire on-premise, including MFA and the Exchange Active Sync or Exchange on-premise. So for now, that would be all, and the next video will be coming next week, because it won't take much of my time to create that. And thank you so much for your time. And in case you have any question or any query, I would request you to post that in the comment section. Please like the video and subscribe as much as possible. And yeah, that would be all. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day ahead. Bye bye.